Hi everyone, and welcome to Sustainable Channel. The war in Ukraine is a terrible social catastrophe. But not only. There is another side to this war, environmental. As a Russian, I think it's important to draw the attention of my fellow citizens and all other people to this topic, because it's little mentioned despite the significance. Nature is a silent victim of this war, so it must have its own voice that needs to be heard. Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe and is home to more than a third of all biodiversity on the continent. Important natural areas such as the Danube Delta, the Carpathians and the Black Sea coast are located here. 37 years ago, Ukraine already experienced one of the largest man-made disasters, the explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. But today it is experiencing an even larger and more destructive environmental crisis that continues. Since the Russian invasion, fighting has taken place in a bunch of protected areas. For instance, the Black Sea Biosphere Reserve on the southern coast of Ukraine is a heaven for migratory birds. Over 120,000 birds spend the winter on its shores in wetlands and steppes. Among them a wide range of rare species such as white-tailed eagles, great bustards, curlew sandpipers or black-winged stilts, to name just a few. The reserve is also home to Black Sea bottlenose dolphins, rare flowers, countless shellfish and dozens of fish species. Another natural reserve, Askania Nova, is a unique territory containing wetland ecosystems protected by the Ramsar Convention. 53 plant species are endemic to this place. Mammals like bison, saigas, Przewalski's horse, red deer, sika deer, mouflons and Bactrian camels live here all year round. Exotic animals like watusi, eland, Kafir buffalo, wildebeest, nilgai, zebra and gayal are released in summer. In autumn, a large number of migratory birds gather in its reservoirs, different species of ducks, cranes, geese and waders. The Black Sea Biosphere Reserve, Askania Nova and 11 other natural parks are now under occupation. Up to 45% of their territory was damaged by explosions and ecosystems devastated. While the fighting is ongoing, these occupied places remain neglected and they will likely fall into further disrepair, with animals being deprived of their habitat. Ukraine is saturated with chemical plants and storage facilities, oil depots, coal mines, gas pipelines and other industrial facilities that, if damaged, can release a huge amounts of pollution. Indiscriminate bombing of military installations, factories, power plants and storage facilities all over the country pollutes water, soil and air with chemicals and petroleum products. In cities, damaged sewers discharge wastewater into the soil and rivers. Mariupol is the most prominent example of this. The city, formerly populated by more than 400,000 people, was literally erased with its houses, infrastructure and multiple industrial facilities. The real extent of intoxication is yet unknown, as the city is occupied and samples of water or soil cannot be collected. Permanent attacks on Mariupol and other ports and ships already caused oil and sunflower oil spills in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. At least 1 million tons of petroleum products were burned all around the country as a result of shelling, polluting the atmosphere with gases and soot. In the Black Sea there have been strandings of dolphins and an increase in the frequency of their being caught in fishing nets, which may be due to both explosions and the active use of military submarines with powerful acoustic devices. Marine mammals may be at risk of direct damage and destruction due to explosions and gunshots, acoustic trauma, which gradually leads to starvation or disorientation, and being washed up on the coast. Approximately one-third of the entire territory of Ukraine is covered with craters from explosions. The steppe is now a lunar landscape, trampled and driven over by armored vehicles. The soil is poisoned by missile fuel and chemicals from the shells, which will remain there for many decades. Today, Ukraine is the most heavily mined country in the world. At least 15% of agricultural land is mined and therefore unsuitable for agriculture, but mines also remain in forest and at sea, posing a threat to all life for many years to come. During the war, forest fires frequency increased by 30 times and about 2.5 million hectares of forest have been damaged. In the first 4 months alone, 37,000 fires occurred. The 6th of June 2023 is the day of the most devastating ecological disaster, the collapse of the Kakhovka Dam. It caused mass-scale pollution when 150 tons of machine oil ended up in Dnipro and then in the Black Sea. The river overflowed, washing away soil, vegetation and animals that had not been evacuated. The flow of water bared the burial sites of people and animals. Decomposing corpses and remains have released various pathogens into the water. Around 100,000 tons of dead fish from the Kakhovka reservoir were washed out and started to rot on the land, spreading additional pathogens. The catastrophe devastated around 80,000 hectares of natural reserves and 55,000 hectares of forest. The ecological balance drastically shifted, putting more than 2,000 square kilometers of territory into jeopardy. Without proper maintenance, the former bottom of the reservoir can turn into the biggest desert in Europe and create lots of sandstorms. But the impact of the war does not only affect Ukraine itself, it extends far beyond its borders. After the sanctions, Russia began purchasing old tankers for its shadow oil fleet, which are unreliable and risk spills and seawater pollution. The war contributed to global climate change by releasing more than 50 million excessive tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Money that Russia, Ukraine and other countries involved could have spent on energy transition is now going towards the war and its aftermath cleanup. All of this clearly shows that from an environmental point of view, the war in Ukraine is undoubtedly an atrocious crime. And this crime is called Ecocide. Ukrainian authorities and public organizations have documented nearly 2,000 cases of wildlife destruction during the war, with damage estimated at more than $51 billion. However, the true scale of destruction and damage is not yet known and will only be revealed when the war ends. Ecocide is included in the Criminal Code of Ukraine and 12 other countries, but does not have the status of an international crime, which means it cannot be tried by the International Criminal Court, along with genocide, crimes against humanity, war or aggression. This is despite the statements of universal concern about protecting the environment. Meanwhile, there is now a campaign to include ecocide in the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court, but no one knows when this will happen. The crime of ecocide affects the entire planet, without exaggeration. Therefore, the events in Ukraine must have a proper international investigation and trial in an international court. And those responsible for the attack on this country and the destruction of its nature must be held accountable in the face of all humanity. This is the only way to achieve the triumph of international law. I believe that Ukraine will survive and be reborn despite all the troubles that this war has brought upon it. And I sincerely wish for the prompt end to this horror. Thanks to everyone who watched this video. Good luck and be sustainable.